Ghost Story: The Sinister Possession, a haunting tale of terror and despair.
Let me tell you a bone-chilling tale that will make your skin crawl, inspired by the master of horror himself, Stephen King. Gather round, my friends, as I recount the haunting events of possession. In the small town of Castle Rock, nestled deep within the heart of Maine, there lived a young woman named Sarah Thompson. It was a decade ago when tragedy befell her family. They hurriedly made their way from the bustling city of Portland to their ancestral home, situated on the outskirts of town. The Thompsons had to face a grim reality as they arrived at their destination late into the night. Their beloved matriarch had already succumbed to the cold hands of death. The old house, standing as a relic of the past, greeted them with an eerie silence. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine as she stepped across the threshold, even though it was the height of summer. Her parents, uncle and aunts, burdened with the sorrow of their loss, dispersed to fulfill various duties. Some rushed to the hospital to make arrangements for the transfer of their grandmother's body, while others sought funeral attire. Sarah was left behind, entrusted with the solemn task of watching over the house. As the rest of her family departed, leaving her alone in that dimly lit abode, an icy chill gripped the air, penetrating her bones. Unsettling thoughts began to creep into her mind. Seeking solace, she sought refuge near the fireplace, but an overwhelming dizziness washed over her. Her head spun, and she collapsed to the cold floor, tears streaming down her face as uncontrollable sobs racked her body. It was as if an invisible force had taken hold of her, making her cry out in despair against her own will. Time blurred, and Sarah's disoriented gaze caught sight of Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, their neighbors, hurrying into the house. They scooped her up and laid her upon a worn-out couch, their comforting words falling on deaf ears. Her cries persisted, seemingly beyond her control. She was trapped within her own torment, conscious of the unfolding events, yet unable to articulate her thoughts. The concerned neighbors, coinciding with the return of her uncle, brought an air of confusion and desperation to the scene. Exhausted from her emotional ordeal, Sarah slipped into a daze, drifting in and out of consciousness, her mind a haze of fragmented thoughts. Upon regaining her faculties, her family shared a disturbing revelation. They had called upon esteemed spiritual masters from far and wide, hoping to rid Sarah of the malevolent forces that had taken hold of her. These revered figures sensed the presence of two entities, one old and the other young, intertwined within her very being. Their spiritual powers, though formidable, proved insufficient to combat the relentless grip of the young entity. Months dragged on, marked by Sarah's frailty and her inability to function. Her emaciated figure weighed no more than a mere ghostly whisper, confined to her bed as her mother tended to her every need. During this harrowing period, Sarah found herself caught between lucidity and bewilderment. She could utter a few coherent sentences on occasion, but for the most part, her words spiraled into a jumble of unintelligible babble. The terror escalated when her voice, under the entity's control, twisted and contorted, morphing into the cadence of a child one moment, then an elderly person the next. She observed the concerned faces of elderly men and women, purported spiritual masters from nearby towns, trying to communicate with her. But their words were garbled, lost in a realm of incomprehensibility. Strangely, she found herself mimicking their foreign tongue, responding with words that held no meaning to her conscious mind. One fateful evening, the spiritual masters decided to hold a final confrontation, employing their most potent incantations and ancient rituals. In the dimly lit room, amidst the pungent aroma of burning sage and the harmonious chants of the masters, Sarah lay motionless on her bed. The air thickened, and the room became charged with an otherworldly presence. Shadows danced along the walls, elongating and morphing into grotesque shapes that seemed to defy nature's laws. Her family watched with bated breath as the spiritual masters invoked their powers, their eyes closed in concentration. Sarah's body twitched and writhed, her eyes rolling back into her head. The battle for her soul raged on in the spiritual realm, a war fought on an invisible plane. The masters struggled against the young entity's tenacious grip, bargaining and pleading for its departure. And then, a profound silence enveloped the room, as if the universe itself held its breath. Sarah awoke, her family gathered around her. She felt a sense of release, a burden lifted from her fragile shoulders. Her mother recounted the spiritual master's words, revealing that the old entity had been their ancestor, a tormented soul seeking solace in their presence. It harbored no ill intentions towards Sarah, but merely yearned for resolution. The spiritual master had managed to persuade the old spirit to depart, vowing to care for the young entity. Through a series of negotiations, the young spirit revealed its unfinished desire to visit the local supermarket. Once fulfilled, it would relinquish its hold on Sarah's body. Thus, they found themselves in the supermarket, Sarah propelled by an inexplicable force, her eyes fixated on the beverage aisle, where she grabbed multiple bottles of cola. In a frenzy, she tore off the caps, the fizzy liquid cascading down her throat, mixing with her tears and mucus. The sight was both surreal and grotesque, an embodiment of her inner turmoil. Exhausted and drained, Sarah succumbed to an uneasy slumber, only to awaken in her own bed, her strength slowly returning. Today, Sarah lives a relatively normal life, plagued by the haunting memories of that dreadful possession. The scars run deep. Her aversion to church is a constant reminder of the evil that once consumed her. And so, my friends, beware the shadows that lurk in the darkest corners of our souls, for they hold secrets beyond our comprehension. In the realm of the supernatural, not everything can be explained, and the line between reality and nightmares remains forever blurred. Horror story: The Terrifying Curse of the Haunted Umbrella. This eerie tale was whispered to me, a chilling account of an unfortunate soul named Jack. In a remote, desolate town, Jack stood out as the first college-bound student, a piece of news that reverberated through the hushed whispers of locals. Little did he know that a bizarre and otherworldly encounter awaited him. It was the summer after his high-stakes exams, and the sweltering heat of the season pushed him to seek refuge at the shady internet cafe in the neighboring town. Without internet access in his village, Jack planned to embark on an early morning bicycle ride to reach the infamous Black Web Cafe. The journey to the town, a grueling 3-hour ride through treacherous mountain paths, necessitated careful preparation. Equipped with necessary documents, sustenance, and a casual farewell to his unsuspecting parents, Jack retired to his room, oblivious to the haunting horrors about to unfold. As the dawn tiptoed across the horizon, Jack arose from his fitful slumber and set out on his fateful expedition. He pedaled along the winding mountain roads, relishing the gentle caress of the breeze against his face. The anticipation of entering a new phase of life surged through him, propelling him to greater speeds, as if the very air crackled with a malevolent energy. But as he veered off the mountain paths and onto the main road, an encroaching darkness tainted the sky above. Jack halted his bike and gazed upward, his heart quickening as he beheld a brewing storm. Muttering to himself, "How peculiar. The weather was fine when I departed. Why does it now resemble a sinister shroud foretelling a deluge? Alas, I neglected to bring an umbrella. It seems I shall be drenched to the bone." Just as he contemplated braving the rain, a distant thunderclap reverberated through the atmosphere, and raindrops began their slow descent. In the blink of an eye, the raindrops transformed into torrential downpours, as if nature itself conspired against him. Jack pedaled furiously, his determination to outrun the escalating tempest growing with each passing moment. It was during this deluge that a peculiar sight caught his attention. A crimson umbrella nestled amidst the tangled undergrowth at the roadside. A surge of elation coursed through him, and he veered to a halt, snatching up the forsaken object. The umbrella, shorter and slimmer than its conventional counterparts, bore an air of enigmatic allure. Hanging from its handle was a red envelope, concealing a mysterious secret. Eagerly, he tore it open, revealing a $5 bill and a folded triangular talisman crafted from weathered yellow paper. Unease washed over him, whispering doubts that chilled his very soul. "How peculiar indeed," he mused. "This umbrella resembles those wielded during wedding processions. But how came it to be discarded along this forsaken road?" A sharp gust of wind interrupted his contemplation, leaving him no choice but to stow the red envelope in his pocket, unfurl the crimson canopy, and press onward. The umbrella, when fully opened, provided modest shelter from the relentless downpour. Yet, its spindly frame struggled under the weight of the deluge, tilting and buckling against the tempestuous onslaught. With one hand clutching the umbrella and the other steering his bike, Jack forged ahead, his senses heightened by the supernatural atmosphere. And then, Like an ethereal breath, a disembodied female voice whispered softly in his ear. "I'm with you." The words lingered, their spectral resonance mimicking the hushed cadence of an intimate secret. Jack's bewildered gaze darted about, searching for the source of the voice, but the desolate road stretched before him, devoid of any company. A peculiar chill crept up his spine, for the voice persisted, whispering once more, "I'm with you." Startled and disconcerted, Jack relinquished his grasp on the umbrella, raising his eyes to the sky. Raindrops pelted him relentlessly, their monotonous percussion melding with the haunting voice that seemed to follow his every move. His surroundings became an enigmatic maze of shadows and obscured figures, hinting at hidden terrors lurking just beyond his perception. In a sudden, unnerving revelation, two beams of yellow light pierced through the murkiness, accompanied by the jarring screech of tires skidding against wet asphalt. The world around him blurred into a chaotic blur as a bus careened towards him, smashing into his vulnerable form, sending him spiraling through the air. The crimson umbrella descended slowly, landing innocently beside him, a mute witness to the horrors that had transpired. And through the haze of pain and confusion, the voice persisted, echoing through his shattered consciousness. "I'm with you." When Jack awoke, 2 agonizing weeks had slipped through his fractured reality. The missed college application forced him to face another year of academic torment, an unintended sabbatical entwined with lingering fear. The memory of the ethereal voice still plagued him, and so he divulged the unsettling incident to his parents, who listened with a mixture of concern and trepidation. His father, ever the harbinger of dark tales, responded, "As I suspected, you've crossed paths with a vengeful spirit bride. That umbrella, my son, was a prop in a sinister wedding ceremony. Let me tell you about spirit marriages, for they are no mere superstition. When a young woman dies tragically before her nuptials, her family arranges a spirit marriage, adorning her dowry with her birth date, her fate foretold, and a sum of money. This dowry is discarded along the roadside, waiting to be claimed by the groom's family, who seek to unite with a spirit bride. Alas, my son, you, a living being, took what was not rightfully yours, awakening the wrath of the otherworldly. That's why misfortune befell you. At the hospital, I observed the red umbrella and the red envelope in your possession, and I deduced the truth. So, I enlisted the aid of an expert to return those items, to save you from a fate worse than death, an eternity as a spirit groom." Jack's unease deepened, torn between his materialistic skepticism and the undeniable truth that unfolded before him. After his release from the hospital, he accompanied his parents to the site where he discovered the umbrella. 3 sticks of incense burned, their ethereal tendrils mingling with the heavy atmosphere, as they offered their apologies and sought closure. And so, the chapter closed, leaving behind a profound impact. A year later, Jack surpassed all expectations, scoring an impressive entrance to a renowned state university, etching his name as the town's first college-bound student. The tale of the haunting umbrella continues to echo through the dark recesses of the human psyche, a cautionary reminder of the supernatural perils that lurk just beyond the realm of comprehension.